There's one. There's a nicer one here too. You know, when you're throwing spinner baits like this, conditions sometimes can be everything. There's no doubt you can catch fish in a variety of different circumstances, but when you got wind like this and sun, that's the time to pull out the spinner baits. This is a nice little fish here, nothing big, but a blast to catch on spinner baits. Just throwing tandem willow leaf blade here, spinner bait, 1/2 ounce. We'll get into a little bit more details. We'll get this guy back first. A little bit later on in the show, we'll get into some more details on exactly what we're throwing and why we're throwing the exact setups that we are. Give you some ideas on rods and reels and line selection, because that's all a big part of spinnerbait fishing.
That is really key. You know, you don't really want to force, you know, the day as far as what bait. Oh, there's one. Wow. I'll tell you what, when you get on a hot spinnerbait bite, you got to have the right conditions. And Mike was talking about earlier, you know, you don't want to force the conditions. You know, if it's dead flat calm, you know, you want to throw the right bait. Get this one in here. Little guy. Yeah, little guy, but definitely not a, you know, nice little start here. But yeah, you don't want to force the conditions. We got perfect conditions, you know, for spinnerbait fishing today. You know, we got a nice chop on the water. The drift is blowing us into an area that we want to be fishing. So we're just, you know, starting out in deeper water. We're letting the wind blow us in here. We're fan casting the area, and it's definitely a spinnerbait day for today. Let's see if we can hook up again here. And I'll tell you what, oh, there we go again. Oh, this is a much nicer one here. And that's how it can be. Oh, he come off. Well, I'll tell you what, but that's part of it. You know, that's part of it. That was a nicer fish for sure. These are the days I wish I had 4 arms, because then I could cast 2 rods at once. One of the things we're concentrating on today is our location, and they always say location is really critical to where you catch fish. You know, we're looking for water depths in that 3 to 5 foot range with a lot of gravel, a lot of boulders. And one thing that's going to really help you with that is you get yourself a Navionics Platinum chip like we have here. And let me zoom in here a little bit and I'll show you what I'm talking about. You can see that dark water, which is represented by that blue. That's actually the shallow water. The white is actually the deeper water. You can see our lines right there. That's, you know, our kind of our course, what we were doing. So basically what we're doing is we're motoring up to the tip here. We're letting the wind blow us across, as you can see, straight down here, and then we're picking back up. By doing that, you know, we were able to fan cast. We didn't even need the electric motor. The wind was strong enough to push us where we wanted to go, cover water, pick up, and then we go back. And by having a chip like this, you can kind of see all those contours. You know, these contours on this particular chip is 1 foot contours, which sometimes is real critical. As you can see, that distinct edge, and that's kind of the areas that we're fishing. Having a good quality piece of electronics and a good chart definitely, you know, is going to help you put more fish in the boat.
You know, we talked about wind and spinnerbait fishing and how important it is. And it's also important in how you approach a piece of structure, whether it's a rock reef or a shoal or a finger offshore. A lot of times when we come in, when the wind's blowing hard like it is today, is we start on the upwind side of the piece of structure and try to work that front edge first. A lot of times the most aggressive fish, and sometimes even the bigger fish, will be right up where the wind is hitting the rocks the hardest and it's blowing in the most. So a lot of times we'll start on that piece of the structure, drift that edge down, try to pick off aggressive fish, and then from there we'll start drifting across the piece and finding little pockets of fish that may be scattered more on top of the reef itself. So keep that in mind when you're out here throwing spinnerbaits on a windy day like this as well.
Right when that bait hit the water, and that's one neat thing about these bass. Oh, we come up out over there. That's one neat thing about these bass. You know, you always got to be on your game here. This feels like a little bit nicer one. We'll take them. Oh boy, I'll tell you what. I could catch these all day long. And on days like today, you can. You get up here, you throw spinnerbaits. On a day like today, you get these windy conditions. You can put a boatload of these in. I'm gonna let this thing go. We're gonna see if we can catch some more of these.
And when it comes to spinnerbaits, guys, if you've ever walked into a tackle store, you know the variety and the selection available can sometimes be overwhelming. It's almost a little intimidating. But when you focus in on these fish up in Door County and Sturgeon Bay in this ultra clear water that we face almost everywhere we fish up here, basically it kind of narrows down the selection for you. And we're going to show you a few things that we use, a few different types, and maybe help you pick a few out next time you come up this way to fish. Basically, there's two choices that we use. We use either a double willow leaf design. Basically, the double willow leaf design gives you a lot of flash, not a lot of vibration, lets you burn it real quick, and it kind of gives that image off of a bait fish image to these fish. And when the water's clear and the conditions are right, sometimes that's your best choice. Another one would be a single spin. And the single spin Colorado is another good choice. And sometimes this bait right here can be a little more effective if you got a little cloud cover, if the water's a little dirtier, if you're not fishing ultra clear water. Say the wind's been blowing in an area and it's a little churned up. Sometimes a single spin Colorado blade like that can be a great choice. Color-wise, we really like painted blades. Chartreuse, whites, anything with a chartreuse tint to it. This can be a great choice when targeting smallmouths. Another choice that's a good one is a solid white, an all white painted blades, white skirt, maybe a little tint of chartreuse or orange in it. This is another great choice when you're up in these waters. So keep those things in mind. Go with a double willow leaf. If the water's a little dirtier, go with a single Colorado. Look at some chartreuse or whites and you're gonna put a lot of fish in the boat. Oh, right by the boat. A little bit nicer fish too. Oh yeah, nice one. And that kind of shows you got to finish off retrieves. We talk about that a lot. A lot of times, especially throwing fast-moving baits like this, these fish will follow right to the boat. Wow, this guy. That's a nice little smallmouth right there. And that's a good point to keep in mind whenever you're fishing fast spinnerbaits, grubs even, that kind of stuff. Don't take, when you get halfway in, don't just burn it in and try to get another cast out right away. Continue to work it all the way to the boat, because sometimes that angle change as the bait's coming in and you start to bring it up as it gets closer to the boat, sometimes that little change in angle will trigger these fish to bite. So finish your cast all the way to the boat every time. Let's see if we can get another one here.
You want to have some great action. When you're out fishing for smallmouths, throwing spinnerbaits, you got to have the right gear. And when we're talking right gear, we're talking the right rod and reel combinations. Here we got some bait casting outfits. When you're talking the rod, you need a rod in that 6'10" to 7.5 foot range. And reels, you're looking at reels as far as gear speed, probably 6-to-1, maybe 7-to-1 for gear ratio. Line, you got a couple options there. This one happens to be rigged with a fluorocarbon 15-pound test. Works really good. But the other option is a braid. And no matter what braid you're running, we prefer Duracast, maybe 12, 14, 20-pound test. But whatever the braid is, make sure that you put a fluorocarbon leader on it, because up here in the Door County area, water's ultra clear, and without that leader, you're not going to get as many bites. You do a few of those techniques, and I'll tell you what, you're going to have some success out on the water.
Oh, there's one. Nicer one. He's coming up a little bit. Yeah, another nice smallmouth. It's a nice fish, and this is really what you could expect to catch in some pretty big numbers up here when you focus in on this post-spawn period. Get some spinnerbaits out and take advantage of when the conditions are right to throw them. Thanks again for watching, everybody, and be sure to tune in next week for another brand new episode of Fish Door County TV.